What up, good people? It's me, Johnny, back at it again with another video. And as some of you might know, I am a huge fan of Marvel and what the MCU used to be. Yes, I use that in past tense. It pains me to see what Marvel has done to some of the characters I grew up loving out of the comics. So, in today's video, this will be my first video in a list of videos that I'm going to do talking about what I believe Marvel could do to make these characters in the MCU that they have messed up better. As we know, characters in these movies inside the MCU, they're the ones who we get hooked to. It's why when Tony Stark died, we were sad. It's why when Captain America, Chris Evans stepped away, we felt some type of way about that. Heck, even when Black Widow died, or even Gamora, it was like, man, that's crazy. So having these characters being done right in the MCU is a big deal. And today I'm going to start with the Hulk, somebody I feel that Marvel has just done the wrongest. When the Incredible Hulk was first introduced to us in the MCU back in 2008, he was close to what we have seen him be in Marvel Comics. For anyone that doesn't know, the Hulk was first introduced to us in Marvel Comics back in the year of 1962. I believe that was in May, and that was in the Incredible Hulk issue number 1, written by the great Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. Back when he was first introduced, much like we saw in the MCU, when Bruce Banner turned into the big green or gray rage monster, depending on who you ask, he would start to smash anything and everything that was in his way, not whatever the heck this is that the MCU has turned him into that people are calling Professor Hulk, because I've read the comics, and Professor Hulk in the comics was way different than what we got in the MCU and a lot more cooler, but I'll touch on that here in a little bit. Having said that, the lazy way I think that they could go about to actually fix his character, and I hope they actually don't do this, by the way, it would be to retcon him using the multiverse as a plot device to do so, since that's the current phase that Marvel is in. I certainly hope they don't do that, but that would be the easiest way. Now, me personally, I think the better way Marvel can do this is in one of two ways. The first way and opportunity to do it would be if they are still making the World War Hulk movie. In this movie, if they follow the same storyline for Marvel Comics by the way of World War Hulk issue number 1 that came out in 2007, they can take a similar approach to what happened there. So in that comic, the Hulk got sent into space by Earth's heroes and ended up on the planet Sakaar. He starts a family there, much like we have kind of seen in the MCU. You know, when he at the end of She-Hulk, for anybody who watched that awful show. If you didn't get to watch it, yeah, his son kind of showed up at the end of that show. But anyway, in the comic though, the ship he arrived on was planted with a bomb that was supposed to end up killing the Hulk, and it ended up actually killing his wife and son. And then the Hulk shows back up to Earth and starts going on a rampage, killing everybody. It was amazing when this happened. In the MCU, the Hulk has already been to space, of course, so they don't have to necessarily do that. He's already landed on Sakaar. He's already started a family in the MCU. However, what I believe Marvel could do is have him bring his family to Earth, and then through some accident, his family ends up dying. The Hulk, of course, having seen this happen in anguish and just flat out just festivity due to the loss of his family, ends up losing his mind, not to the point of going insane though, but more of a controlled rage like we saw in the comics that resulted in my favorite version of the Hulk, which was World Breaker Hulk. He then starts to want to track down the people who did it and starts wrecking everybody who gets in his way. Of course, Earth heroes will show up and try to get him to calm down and, and stop this. And then he just starts to whip the living out of all the heroes. That would be insane. That would be a great movie, and it will give us the Hulk that I think most fans actually want. A brutal version of the Hulk that we got in Marvel Comics, and we saw, of course, in the Edward Norton Hulk, and then early on in the first Avengers film. If the World War Hulk movie doesn't get made, I think the second way that they can go about to redeem the Hulk might come as a surprise to some people listening when I say this, but I think that the Professor Hulk character that they actually currently have in the MCU can work, just not the way the MCU has introduced him, though, or is depicting him. For anyone listening that doesn't know, Professor Hulk in the comics is actually kind of dope. So when he was first introduced in Marvel Comics back in November of 1990, I think he came out in The Incredible Hulk number 377, written by Peter David. And this happened similar to what we were told in the comic about him, having to come to some form of peace agreement with the Hulk half of himself, if you will. And in this comic, even after doing that, he was still the menacing force of nature that we knew him to be, but with Bruce's intelligence. We know that Marvel is still planning on going through with making the Kang Dynasty film for the next Avengers movie. And here's what I think they could do, either in that movie, or they could maybe even introduce it in the Deadpool and Wolverine movie, or if not then sometime in between. What they could do is have him recruited to help the TVA start to develop weapons that can be used to fight against the Kangs. After being brought into the TVA, he comes to this understanding about the major threat that the entire multiverse is in, and that the major threat that Kang is, and that him just developing weapons actually isn't enough. He knows that he must join the fight physically, and that's when he allows the Hulk personality of him to take a little more control, which gives us a Hulk like we saw, let's say, doing Thor Ragnarok on Sakaar, but with still a lot of Bruce's intelligence, which allows him to smash things while still using some of the tech that he actually, built for the TVA in this fight. Kind of like what happened in The Incredible Hulk, volume number 390 of the comics. I do know that, yes, in this comic, he didn't actually develop these weapons, but he did actually use weapons in this comic, so I'm just bringing up this comic just more to make my point. I, for one, would actually love any one of these two options, and I think it can help us as fans start to not just love his character direction again, but give him that feel that when he gets into the fight, that business is actually about to pick up, much like it used to when we saw him transform, Bruce Banner that is, into the Hulk. Let me know your thoughts in the comments if you agree with my ideas, or what do you believe Marvel could do to make the Hulk great again. But until the next video, have a good one, and I'll talk to you all later. Take care.